Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Armando Camacho, and I'm pleased to serve as the president and CEO of Wilder. I've been here a little over 3 months, and I've been enjoying my time immensely here at Wilder. Before we begin, I want to share some housekeeping items with you. We've automatically muted people's audio and enabled your video, so you can see who else is on the call. If you would like to turn off your video, you can do so at the bottom of the Zoom window by clicking Stop Video to focus your screen. We recommend going to the top right-hand corner of the Zoom window and selecting Speaker View. This event is being recorded. We're also encouraging you, points here. All right. We're also encouraging folks to engage in the chat section of the right side, on the right side of your Zoom window. Enter your questions for the speaker there. Let's go ahead and get the chat started. Where is everyone logging in from today? Type in your location in the chat. So again, if you can log in on the speaker window, log in for the chat feature, type in your location in the chat. We got Prescott, Wisconsin. Wonderful. During our program, we'll start with an overview from me, introduce you to Miah Ulysse, who will share more about the Community Equity Program, and then you'll hear from two alumni, Maria Pérez-Hedges and Linda Garrett-Johnson. In the final 15 minutes, we'll host a question and answer session. Enter your questions in the chat as we go, or voice your questions by clicking on the icon labeled Participants at the bottom center of your screen, and then in the participants window next to your name. Click on the Raise Hand button, and we'll turn on your audio to ask your questions during that part of the program. I know it's a lot to think about, but we can do it. We've done it before, and I believe in you. Over the chat functions, we can get there. Now for a brief overview of our Knowledge, Compassion, Action, or KCA event series, and why the Community Equity Program, or CEP, is so important to Wilder. We started the Knowledge, Compassion, Action, or KCA series 2 years ago as a way to share the impact of Wilder's programs and services with donors and partners. We want you to know that your support, be it through your donations, volunteer service, partnership, or advocacy on Wilder's behalf, makes a big difference in our community. Thank you so much. Watch your email and our website for more KCA events to come in early 2021, showcasing Wilder's researches, homeless study, and our Child Development Center. One thing that drew me to Wilder out of many was its strong history of work to advance equity. The Community Equity Program is a great example of that. The Community Equity Program was recently featured on NPR, highlighting the racial gap in decision-making at the Capitol. Minnesota's population includes 20% Black, Indigenous, and people of color, but only 10% of the Minnesota legislatures reflect those communities. CEP began in 2015 and amplifies the power, skills, and experience of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC, to engage in and influence public policy decision-making. While we've made progress over the years, we have a way to go, and it's why CEP is so essential to our community. For CEP, there's a lot of work that goes into reviewing applications, selecting 15 participants, planning and programming, and facilitating each of the 17 sessions that take place over the course of 9 months. Managing this process is Miah Ulysse, Program Manager for the Community Equity Program. I'm excited for you to learn more about CEP from Miah, as her passion for this work is driving real change. Hey Miah, how's it going? Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you so much. We appreciate your leadership and helping us put this event on today. So we're so grateful for your leadership, and it's an honor to have you here today. And I'd like to share with our audience a little bit about your background, because you have an amazing background, and these few comments won't do it justice, but I'll try my best. Miah Ulysse is a fierce justice advocate and community connector with roots in Minnesota and Haiti. She's passionate about creating more just systems through policy, collective resistance, and food. Miah has impacted the Twin Cities community through her work on policy, advocacy, and program development, network building, and communications at organizations such as Loaves and Fishes, Urban Oasis, and Appetite for Change. She has advanced local, state, and federal food policy efforts, including the establishment of the Urban Agricultural Grant Program, one of the first urban culture programs, specific state-funded grant programs in the country. A budding herbalist and outdoor fanatic, Miah can be found getting her hands dirty in the garden, cycling around the city, and unplugging by spending time with nature. It's all yours, Miah. Take it away.
Thanks, Armando. I'm really excited to be able to showcase a little bit more about CEP and share about the impact that it has had, not only in my life, but in the lives of alumni and people who have passed through this program. A little bit like Armando said, we began in 2015, and we have a strong network of over 90 alumni that influence the program to this day and serve as guest speakers. It is a free program. Thank you to the funding from McKnight Foundation, from Minneapolis Foundation, from Trillium, from individual donors. Perhaps maybe you're a donor of this program, so thank you. And it is offered at no cost to BIPOC community members in the Twin Cities metro area to be able to, in one part, learn about the innings of the state capitol. So, what does the legislature consist of? Who are key players within the House and the Senate? And actually talking about how a bill becomes a law. I know people think about like that Schoolhouse Rock video on like, I'm just a bill, which is really catchy, but it doesn't actually capture all of the work that goes into being able to change and influence policies. And it doesn't actually discuss the nuances and the hardships that BIPOC people specifically have when they're trying to advocate for racial justice and for policies that would positively impact their communities at the Capitol. And so I see CEP as the facilitator as a space for support for people who want to make changes in their communities, who want to learn about policy, who want to be civically engaged and hone in on the skills needed to actually make changes at the Capitol, but also supporting them mentally, emotionally, and physically so that they don't burn out and quit, because that happens all the time. And you see that very frequently in spaces of public policy where people burn out in less than 10 years. And that's something that we don't want. We want to make sure that we're increasing representation at the Capitol, whether it's through getting people into seats of office, making sure that the staffers at the Capitol are diverse, making sure that our alumni have opportunities to understand the other career pathways outside of the Capitol that support policy work, such as being advocates in nonprofits, doing community organizing, and even just making sure that you can get out the vote and share information with your communities and letting them know that we're not grooming you to have a certain job after this program. We're not telling you that there's only one way to do things, but we are giving you that information because we feel like every person that lives in the state of Minnesota deserves to understand how to make changes at the Capitol. So it starts in September, and normally we do an outdoor retreat or an overnight retreat. But at this time, since we have COVID, we are doing our programming virtually through Zoom. And over the course of 9 months, we go through the technical information around just how the state legislature works. We go up to the Capitol and do a scavenger hunt. And we do some group projects around having hearing simulations so that people are prepared to actually use their voice and advocate at the Capitol. And our alumni are a really important part of this process. I love seeing them come back and share about the work that they're doing, how CEP has impacted their lives. And we are blessed to have two really amazing alumni here who are going to share their perspectives over the next 45 minutes with us. And I will introduce them now. We have Maria Isa Pérez-Hedges, and she is a national award-winning Puerto Rican singer, songwriter, actress, rapper, and recording artist born in Minnesota and raised on St. Paul's West Side Barrio. Maria Isa is a recipient of the McKnight Artist Fellowship from 2019 to 2020 for musicians. She's the CEO of Puerto Rico Records and is a 2018-2019 alumni of the Community Equity Program. She's passionate about advocacy for the Insulin for All Minnesota effort and puts her skills to work by assisting disaster relief and cultural programming in Puerto Rico. Her latest EP, Amor Universal, is available now on all streaming platforms. So grab yourself a copy and welcome Maria Isa.
Hola, gracias, saludos, buenos dias. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Love to see EP always.
Yes. And then we have Linda Garrett-Johnson. She is a 2018-2019 alum of the Community Equity Program, so same cohort as Maria Isa. She has a bachelor's in organization development and an associate's in applied science in business management and computer science. Linda is also a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt Process Improvement Consultant. She is a CEP alum and a Nexus Boards and Commissions Leadership Institute alum as well. Linda's background includes business, process development, and organizational consulting and training as the CEO and principal consultant of The Word Applied Incorporated. She's experienced in human-centered design, community engagement strategies, and capacity building services. Linda has also consulted with educational institutions, government agencies, corporations, foundations, grassroots organizations, and for-profit and nonprofit entities. These skills transfer well to the legislative and policymaking work of the City Council, and she is currently running for City Council in Apple Valley. For Linda, community engagement has always been a priority. With this passion, Linda developed the Center for Intersectional Leadership, or CIL, for individual leaders and nonprofit organizations to pool their voices, experiences, expertise, and talents to protect and promote the rights of marginalized communities in Minnesota. Whew, if y'all are not just sitting here thinking that these two women are absolutely amazing by the time I've just finished ranting about them for 5 minutes straight, I don't know what's gonna do it, because these women are absolutely amazing. So I'm so excited for them to be here. And after we go through this process, I hope that you will do a little bit more digging on the current CEP cohort and seeing the amazing cohort that we have for this current year. So I will give the mic off to the two of you, and I just would love for you to even do your own introduction and share a little bit about how CEP has been impactful for you since you've graduated from our program.
Well, I can start if that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So the one thing that I'll say that CEP has done for me right away is, like Miah mentioned, is that I'm currently running for Apple Valley City Council. When I came to CEP, I had actually I had sought the endorsement for the Minnesota House of Representatives for my Senate district. I didn't get the endorsement. My name stayed on the ballot. I got 1,100 votes. I'm so proud of that. But then, of course, it fell off after the primary. But what CEP did for me was two main things. One is that it allowed me as a Black woman to be able to safely come to a space and allow myself to talk about what it's like to be a Black woman trying to be in a public policy space. I have been on a number of statewide advisory committees. There's a lot of things that I've done that are not in the bio that you all have in front of you, but I had never felt like, until being a part of CEP, I had, when we introduced ourselves that first afternoon, and Maria knows this, is that, you know, I was moved to tears. I cried because it was the first time ever that I felt safe to talk about what it was like. So that was one thing. And that thread was all throughout what we got out of CEP. So I don't know, Miah, do you want me to say any more? I mean, there's a couple of other things that I wanted to say, but should I continue or should I wait?
Yeah, feel free to finish your thought.
Okay, so just a couple other things really quickly then. So with CEP, there was a lot, like Miah and Armando have talked about, that we learned. And the interesting thing is that when I started running for City Council, I decided that my campaign would be one where I wanted to live out being a community builder. And what that meant for me was hosting community conversations in Apple Valley that have never happened before. And what I found myself doing was using all the skills and some of the knowledge that I had learned from CEP in my community conversations as I put together presentations. So I do one now on knowing who represents you, and that was pivotal because part of that what I put together in that presentation for people came with the knowledge that I received from CEP. And what I found was that people in my own community had never, now again, I'm running at a local race, I'm running at a city level race, so I'm not trying to run at the House of Representatives or at the Senate in Minnesota, but CEP helped me. They did talk about the local races. They talked about county commissioner. They talked about city council. And so that knowledge that I received as being a part of CEP really helped. It's foundational to everything that I'm doing right now. And what I want to say is thank you to CEP. Thank you for everything that I've received from CEP, because not only did I receive something, but now my community in Apple Valley is receiving something. So it's like I was the one individual that went through CEP as a Black woman, but my community in Apple Valley, all the residents that I touch, that I communicate with, and I hold weekly community conversations now through the end of the month. As I do that, the individuals in my community are being touched. And what I will say, every time I have those community conversations, people are so thankful. So, I just wanted to share that the CEP, seems like you may be helping a cohort group, but you never know how much further what that cohort group is learning and what they get from CEP, how much further that can go into a community.
I totally agree. I think that the beautiful part of this program is seeing the aftermath of the work that is done after you go through the program, and noticing and realizing that it isn't just about the 15 or the 12 people that are in each cohort. It's about the work that they do and the lives that they touch and the communities that they impact afterwards. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing and introducing yourself. Maria, Isa, do you want to share a little bit about yourself in your own words and how CEP has been impactful for you so far?
Definitely. I was part of the 2019 cohort with Auntie Linda. She's a village auntie. It's so nice to see you. And really, as I'm a rapper, I'm a songwriter, I'm a youth mentor. I direct mentorship at Twin Cities Mobile Jazz Project, which is a nonprofit serving youth predominantly with curriculums utilizing music as a way to heal trauma. So when you see the lenses of what this uprising that we have witnessed in our own cities, those youth are being educated by folks like myself on behalf of empowerment and saying no mas. And CEP really gave me the opportunity, not only as an artist, to engage my voice in a way to build with other folks that are doing movement work in their own organizations or own platforms, but really get to know how we can be more predominant in making policy and changing it to be for us, inclusive of all. Really in a time where we had a new governor stepping in. Things were shifting, and we were really focusing on a one Minnesota and what does that look like. CEP was in the momentum of growing. What does one really look like? If this is the motto as a state in the legislative building, we still are outnumbered completely. And CEP allowed us to get together in being unapologetic about our actions and how we want to take force in a legislative process, understanding a little bit more of the history and the content of the legislative process, and being able to be comfortable in spaces where that weren't welcoming or still haven't been welcoming to us, and saying if we really want to make this happen, we kind of have to beat the system, and in order to beat the system, you got to play the game to win the game. So CEP gave us those tools and some of the missing links that we haven't had forth, because I can speak on myself, and a lot of the stories in our alumni class of 2019 is feeling the strength to continue to move forward in a system that has pushed us when we've reached the top, and feeling like we've landed somewhere, whether it is through our work in our organizations or volunteering, or even through a platform of arts and entertainment and cultural advocacy, and then say, oh, here we go. It feels like you start at zero again. CEP gave us that torch to bridge all of our love, our trauma, to heal. and to understand, and also to recognize amongst the racial disparities in our own communities, and saying that if we don't fix this ourselves and take that empowerment and leadership, how are we going to cross a big word, two words, I should say, that bridge into one, which was one of our lessons as far as discussions and talking with other former CEP alumni, but white supremacy. How do we survive white supremacy in a system that was not built for us, that has left us, and specifically as women of color? When we talk about, hey, these are the disparities, and then you have a whole cohort which the majority were women of color, which was another very positive and warming light for me to be in the work that we do. I just found out the first class of CEP the first day that I was expecting with my first child. And so my 9 months was really a 9 months of policy and pregnancy together. The rapper in me likes to put them together, policy, pregnancy. But, and it encouraged me more to say, hey, if these are the folks in community, whether they're going to run or they're going to be a part of those who are stepping up to the plate in legislative change, my daughter is going to be at a safe hand of knowing like this village has got her back. And as a youth worker, that was so empowering for me to say, hey, folks got to jump on board, whether you want to apply or support. If you have means to support this program, please do, because it is needed. It allowed me to step into the plate more with my advocacy, being a new mother, but also engaging in the Insulin Affordability Act this past last year as a session for the Alex Smith Affordability Insulin Act through Minnesota Insulin for All, led by Nicole Holt, the mother of Alex Smith, who he died rationing his insulin. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I can't just talk about the disparities amongst race and gender and education when really health is what ties it all together. We have mind, physical, and spirit. And CEP, let me tell you, without CEP, I don't think I would have had the force of inspiration, so to say. I mean, I can inspire myself, my family can inspire me, my community can inspire me, but you feel troubled at times when you're being the David versus Goliath, especially when you're in front of folks who don't get it, don't care to get it, and want to keep things going the same way that they're going because it's selfish for them and it's a part of that culture of being a supreme being. And CEP gave me the tools to say, hey, this is how you get to that space. This is what you got to take action in getting there, and let that rapper in you come out in your motive of testimony. And so I really was able to braid all of that knowledge and be a part of that change and advocating. And we are the first in the nation to have passed this bill. And now not only are we still battling the state who is trying to sue the state because we were able to move it forward amongst COVID in this pandemic, but we're advocating for other states and encouraging other folks. And my role as an advocate with Minnesota Insulin for All is taking some of those tools that CEP trained and shared with me to other women of color and other folks of color, specifically in the Latinx and Indigenous communities, to take initiative to know these are your rights and this is how you can do it. So if it wasn't for CEP, I don't feel, I not to say I've grown up around policy changers and makers and advocacy and politicians in our Black and Brown communities, but they really allowed me to put my voice and build my own platform to give to Minnesota.
Thank you for sharing, the two of you. I have another question. I would just be curious to understand more about the successes and challenges that you've had in the public policy work that you have engaged in since being a part of CEP.
Well, one thing I can say for myself, before COVID hit, I had testified before the Minnesota, one of the committees. It was the one on the Crown Hair Act. And that one had to do with, and I can't even believe that we even have to talk about this as a state, that we even had to propose a bill. But if you can see my hair, the way that I'm wearing my hair naturally as a Black woman, we actually had to propose, Rena Moran proposed a piece of legislation with another organization, proposed a piece of legislation to make it so that it would be legal for me to wear my hair like this at work and not be penalized for that, per se. You know, so I went down. I was planning on at first just going and listening, but I got asked to speak and got asked to talk about what it's like why I'm wearing my hair naturally and what it's like to be a Black woman doing that. And I have to say that, and I've testified before, but there was something about, again, like Maria talked about, when you go through CEP and you suddenly realize that you're not alone. Even though everyone in the room was not from CEP, I felt like I had the support of CEP in my mind. You know, it stayed with me while I was in front of that committee, looking at the faces that were there. They were predominantly white. There were a lot of people that had no idea as to what it's like to wear their hair like me. And listening to me tell my story about that. But, you know, CEP empowered me through what they taught me. And the cohort group empowered me because I felt like I said, that they were with me in that seat while I was sitting there, you know, that they were there with me in spirit, you know. So I feel that's what CEP did for me, you know. That's just one of the things, like Maria talked about, you know, like for my campaign, I'm in the community and I'm actually talking on a weekly basis, and I'm empowering people, teaching people. One of the community conversations that I do is called Holding Your Elected Officials Accountable, you know, and how, you know, how to have your power, finding your voice through your elected officials. I mean, there's so many things that I feel like I'm able to now give back to people in the community to teach them how to step into public policy, you know. So again, those are some of just a few things. CEP has just done so much, but there are a few things that I can talk about.
Same. It's just the fact of wanting and hoping to feel comfortable in spaces that have pushed us away or have told us that we cannot, our history, you think back to our grandmothers, our mothers, you know, and being in a position to say, nah, we ain't taking that. That's CEP. CEP is, nah, we ain't taking that. We're going to change it. We have a support system of warriors through the empowerment of our ancestors. We are representing not only ourselves in that community, but the changing community, the growing community, the future. What does that look like? What does Minnesota look like for us, right? And now, what does Minnesota look like in 25 years from now? My goal and inspiration from CEP and what we've been able to experience, and now even engage in inviting new cohort members, is to be a part of that plan and recognizing your role. Like Miah, you'd mentioned, you're not training us to take space in legislation. You're training us to know our rights in the legislative process. So if that wants to light the candle to run, so be it. And yes, and we have your back, we have your support. When Linda's running, when Erica's running, I'm naming so many of my classmates that are now running this election season. We're right behind them, even if we're not in their community or in their districts. You know, we're supporting, we're passing the information. We know that they are needed in those places, that we are needed in our places. So CEP has been able to allow us to light the flashlight, you know, There it is. There's the answer. You may not know of it, and it's okay if you don't know. There is no right or wrong answer when you walk into CEP because our communities didn't create the questions. We're surviving them. So it's about feeling the motion in a circle, not in these boxes that we're so used to checking or these separations of group. We're working in a circle, which really plays a role into the land that we're on, this indigenous land. And that's another part of CEP, engaging in cultural education. The importance of everyone from different backgrounds, where if you were born in Minnesota from a community of color, or if you were recently migrated less than a decade ago, if you are a DACA student in CEP, knowing the legislation process better than folks that do carry our citizenship, because we have that. Shout out to Stefania, much love to our court, because she knew the system better than anybody, and she's being attacked by the system more than anyone. And it gave us that voice to not feel scared, not feel that fear that is born in us because of this legislation process has left us out and continues to leave us out. So we're able to learn from another and respect the land that we're on, this indigenous land, knowing the meaning. Everyone wants to say Minnesota, Minnesota, but they don't even know the definition of the state and its connection to water. Another part which I was able to bridge in while I was in CEP was taking a stand at the Public Utilities Council. Probably like 2 weeks into CEP, I'm like, I don't know. Should I do it? You have your family members like, you guys are going to do what? And we're like, we're claiming to stay pipeline 3 because we have life growing in us and we want them to be able to drink clean water and we want to be alive. These are the answers that CEP allows us and empowers us to not be afraid to do, because if something happens, we know that there are classes of supporters, there is alumni that will be there to help us if we are entrapped by the system that we're trying to bridge with and change on a peaceful note. So that was a big light of your answer to your question, Miah.
Can I just say one thing really quick too that I forgot to say, and I don't even know how I forgot this, but the one thing that I'd like everybody to know is, as I run for Apple Valley City Council, that never, ever in the history of the city, if I win a seat on the city council, I would be the first Black person, the first person of color to ever have a seat on the Apple Valley City Council. And the people who hold seats there right now have been there. One has been there for 3 decades. The other is pretty close to 3 decades. Most of the people there have been there for a long time, but never, ever, ever in the history of this city would there have ever been a person of color elected to the city council. That's really sad. It's really sad. And I'm not running just because I'm a person of color. Some people, had asked me, are you running to do this? Are you trying to get rid of that? That's not what I'm running on. But, it's just, I just find it's hard to kind of think about at times that we are still in a place where like this program is about. Yes, we need to do a lot at the legislature, but my goodness, we need to do a lot at the city level, at the county level, because again, there are a lot of decisions that are made at those levels that directly affect people. And if you don't have representation of the communities of color, it's hard then for a city council person or a county commissioner to really effectively legislate at the city or the county level. So we need more voices in those spaces, and at the school board level as well.
Absolutely. It's really interesting to see how I still have conversations with people that believe that we're in a post-racial society, or that institutional racism that doesn't exist, and that the public policy space is an equal and fair playing ground, which we know as BIPOC people that it absolutely is not. And the fact that you have such little representation, even in a place as, close to me as Apple Valley, that's literally a 20-minute drive from my place in St. Paul. And so the fact that there has not been one single BIPOC person elected into that body of office since that city's incorporation I think is very telling to the fact that we need to make sure that we're supporting BIPOC leaders to be able to run for office, support BIPOC leaders that want to be able to be civically engaged, even if they're not an elected official. And so my last question that I have for the two of you before we transition into taking questions from the audience is just, if there are participants in on this call that want to become more civically engaged in the public policy making decision process, what advice would you have for them from your own experience?
I would not just get one answer from one group of folks. As far as with CEP, we had a large, we would debate. Not everybody was answering. We may have felt the same on a lot, but there was also folks that were uneducated regarding Indigenous rights and regarding, the differences and the similarities within the Black and Latinx communities. And so I would speak with folks to be educated. It takes communication. The first step is communicating. That's tribal, is recognizing and respecting and listening. I love just the fact that there is a familia in CEP now, because we were able to listen and help one another, even if we may not agree. It's okay to agree to disagree on certain topics, but we did agree on taking time to listen and making sure that we showed up for one another in some way. And if you are trying to support a BIPOC person that is running, you have to be able to take accountability, especially if you are a white person wanting to support our communities or our leadership, is taking accountability on actions that you may not have known that were harmful for us, and taking that to note. You can't say, nah, you're taking it to the extreme. That is a part of the problem. Taking it to the extreme and saying those things is the reasons why there are still Black men and Black women being killed by the police. Taking it to the extreme is the reason why our graduation rates for our children of color aren't where they need to be. Taking it to the extreme is why our history still isn't taught. The truth is still isn't taught in our curriculums, and they're defunding our arts and cultural programs, which is allowed me to be in this square with you today. So I would say the listening, the taking accountability, and taking action in funding. Put your money where your mouth is. I don't care if it's $5 or $2,500. If you really, really want change to happen, we all know in this system that the money is what gets the people elected. We need help on our campaigns. If you don't have that privilege to have financial support and backing, what is the privilege that you have? You have a knowledge of maybe social media and technology, arts and entertainment. Hey, Auntie Linda needs a jingle. Let's cook that up because we only got 2 weeks left, right? So all of these are strengths, and you have one. Not anyone has a weakness to their ability to make a change in policy work, and that's something that, like I said, listen, accountability, and come on now. Money speaks, okay? So if the money isn't green or jingles like it says in Coming to America, it's in your brain, and it's the usage of your tool of knowledge. So those are ways that you can support.
And what I'll add on to that is, first of all, to understand that it's important for each of us to begin to take a look at understand what's going on around us. And what I mean by that is, sometimes it feels like it's difficult. It feels like a daunting task. Like as I'm running for city council, I had to understand what the city council does. We're not really taught in civics classes what a city council does and how to engage. We're not really taught how the city running of our city works. Thank God for CEP, because they taught me the legislative process. But what I would say is just take it one step at a time. And I'll use myself as an example. In learning about my city, I had to begin to do research on the internet. How is a city formed? What does it mean? What are the powers that a city council has? What does the power that the county commissioners have? And then how does that relate to the state house and the U.S. House? Those types of things. So what I would say is, take yourself on a slow educational journey. start somewhere. Don't overwhelm yourself, because you can get overwhelmed, so don't try to do too much at one time. The other thing is you may want to try to understand is, first of all, who's representing you, because that's an important piece too. So start off with looking at, in the Minnesota House and in the Minnesota Senate, who represents you. And then finding out what committees are they on, and what bills are they authoring, and what they're doing, because they represent you, is what they are doing. Is that what you were hoping that they were going to do? Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to get everything that you want if you meet with them, because they do have things that they ran on for a campaign. But what you can do, once you understand who they are, what they've authored, what committees that they're on, think about, do you feel like your voice is heard through them? So that, again, that's a small step that you can take. And then don't be afraid to meet with them or email them or call them. And also, I don't take no for an answer. I don't take no for an answer. I make sure I elbow my way in, and CEP has helped me to be able to do that, has strengthened me to be able to do that. But the thing to remember is that anybody that's elected, they are, especially if they're representing you, they're there to represent you. So you have a right to expect them to meet with you, to talk with you, to respond to emails, to respond to letters. You have a right to talk with them about the issues that are important to you. Like Maria talked about, she's got the insulin for all. That was a very important issue to her and others. So, so those are the things. I mean, there's so many other things I could talk about, but I just want to say, first of all, that you have a right. The people that are elected, they're elected to represent you. Don't be afraid to do a little research and find out who they are. Don't be afraid to approach them, and then start slow, start little, and then and I'm sure Maria would agree with this. If you all have questions, you can certainly reach out to me. And if you have questions, you can reach out to Maria. Like I said, I've been taking the tools the CEP has given me, and I'm taking it out into the community. And I'm so excited. Even after January, whether I get elected or not, I'm going to continue to do community conversations. And you all are welcome to join them at any time.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Linda, for pointing that out. Contact us. There's a lot of folks that I've recognized how far along just my advocacy with the Minnesota Insulin Affordability Act, especially undocumented folks in our Latinx community who need insulin to stay alive. Like, it's our air, it's our water. If we don't have it, we die. That's just the simplicity of it. Tomorrow. Okay. So like, when you have folks who are scared and fearing their lives being separated from their families because they need medicine. I mean, these are the type of phone calls and emails or Facebook, Twitter, any way that they reach out to see how we can help. And you recognize how that you can't say no. You have to be that voice for folks. And CEP has allowed me to recognize, like, I just can't utilize my voice to sing these messages and record them and distribute. Yes, that's a part of my work, but I really have to take the leadership and the empowerment that my community is allowing me into their spaces, into their personal lives, to make that change. And it was evident to see when we did the Insulin Affordability Act that I was one of the only folks of color in that circle to share the experiences as a woman of color, and as a Latinx a Boricua who has Mexicanos, undocumented Mexicanos and Salvadoreños and Guatemaltecos and Dominicans that reach out to me to say, we work in this country. Why can't we stay alive? Our children are citizens. We need access to this too. So the bill is in place that it's affordable and accessible to Minnesotans who are citizens. But now our work continues. We don't stop there. And CEP has given me that force, like, you can't give up. You can't give up, because there's still people that need the work that you're doing, and reach out to us. It's a simple matter of, how does policy work? How can we get elected, or how can we support our communities of color that are running, our BIPOC communities that are running, or how can I help out with some of the policy work that you're doing? We're here. The technology, there's no, we don't know how to get a hold of you anymore. That can't happen. And if your elected officials are doing that to you and you need some help, hit us up too, because we'll be right there. We're not scared to knock on their door or engage with them and saying, you're ignoring an entire community that you work for. Remember, that is their job. They are there. They get paid from our taxes specifically to represent us and have us. Let's get equity here. So don't feel down and saying, I don't know if I want to reach out to them. No, we're here. That's what we're here to do for. And that's what CEP has led us to recognize, that sí se puede. Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda and Maria Isa. At this time, I want to just note that we have time for a couple questions. And so if you have a question for either myself as the facilitator or for Linda or Maria Isa, you can raise your hand and then one of our staff can unmute you so that you can ask your question, or you can type it into the chat box.
No questions? Really? None? Someone raise your hand. Come on now.
I give them time to type.
Okay, that's right. Type.
Here we go. Okay, so Catherine Gray has a question. What was one of the things that surprised you at the legislature?
Linda, go ahead. You answer that.
Well, I think maybe more disappointed me. I think what disappointed me more, I mean, it was sort of a surprise, but a disappointment, was that how few people really understand what their job is when they get to the legislature. What I mean by that is that a lot of times when we think about people at the legislature, we assume, I know I made this assumption that they know what they're doing. They understand what their job is. That is not the case. They're just like any of us. Sometimes people are running for the right reasons. Sometimes they're running because they have an ego. And when they're running on ego, oftentimes what I'm finding is that they're running on an ego, but they haven't got a clue as to what it is that they're supposed to be doing. And then they get elected and it's like they're trying to figure it out, So I think that's the learning that I have learned over the past 2 years now that has been an eye-opener. It's been very disappointing. But then what I will say is that is why it is so important, why your vote is so important. And when you are getting ready to circle that little circle, the oval, or elect someone, do your due diligence, look them up, take a look at their website if they have one. If they don't, find a way to get a hold of them. But that was the thing that really surprised me at the legislature, is that how we have people in place, and there's a lot of people in place that are got there because of ego. They have no idea what they're doing, but they hold a seat, and it's a seat of power. And so think about when you're electing people, get to know them and think about who you're electing.
I agree with you, Linda. It's so many folks in there that are elected or that are got the silver spoon to be in that seat, because folks don't know how the legislation process works. So or they're not taking the right to vote and recognizing the importance of voting. Myself being holding testimony, I was not shocked at the racial comments that were given to me as I walked out into the elevator with my family who came to support me while I gave testimony, from folks who would say, "Oh, you diabetics are so needy," or why don't the communities of color go to the nonprofits that are getting all of this money to help them get their insulin? Yeah, I mean, the things that were said did not surprise me because we live in a racist society. But what did surprise me is, how are these folks still getting elected? Okay, we've got to tell people to vote, whether it's in our own backyard and, hey, drive a few hours up to Bemidji so that they recognize the guy who's actually running their district does not care about Indigenous rights and the people that are really on that land trying to survive. So that's what was shocking to me is saying these people are still getting elected. Why? We have to empower the voice of the vote. So another thing was surprising to me to not see coffee available during special sessions because MDOT would close and you get to learn about all of those little spots. I'm a cafetera. So my main thing is, how are people staying till 3 a.m. trying to build policy and they're like falling asleep here? Get that person some coffee. So CEP is encouraging me to start a coffee business, to maybe put a coffee cart outside of the Capitol grounds and support Puerto Rican coffee and our economy. But it's really staying woke, making sure that folks are woke, because you'll be surprised that when you get in there, some folks from your own communities that are there to represent our own caucuses aren't. It takes a man, it takes a homie to get kneed by a police officer and lose their life, and a fire to happen in our city for them to say, oh my gosh, we actually can make some change to this, and we should be, and we should have been. Don't say sorry. We don't want to hear the apology. Just show us the work. So that was pretty shocking for me, surprising me to even see our own, like Linda said, there's an ego that we're running, but then when you're there, you feel kind of safe enough to say you don't have to worry about how you got into that place because you're there. Now you're just worrying about, how do I keep this seat, or how do I even do this job? So make sure that it's not just about that one person. It's about who's circulating in those offices. Don't get caught up only on the person that is elected into that seat. Motivate and encourage folks to apply for those positions at the state that are the ones that are also doing the work. That is a major role. Just because their name isn't on a campaign sign in your front lawn doesn't mean that they're not a part of that campaign. That is a huge role that surprised me to see, like, man, this person needs some help. Not to say that they're doing a bad job, but they're looking for the help, but it's getting swamped on top from all of these issues that are going on at the state. So that was shocking for me to see that sometimes we need to put a little bit more fuel into those gas tanks, or hey, no, we need to go solar and make things just power all the time when it comes to who's at the front seat and who's a part of their staff.
Thank you. So we want to make sure that you can, depart at 1, get to your next meetings, take a break, get some lunch, whatever you need to do after this. We want to make sure that we're ending on time. And so I will lean on Armando to help close us out.
Great. Let's give a virtual round of applause to Linda and Marisa and to just amazing work that you're doing. There's a saying that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And CEP is really literally creating a place at the table for many of you. So thanks for your work. Just real quick, I want to share some words that I heard. Felt safe, comfortable, community builder, knowledge learned, received, strength to move forward, help us to heal, to understand, empowerment, leadership, warming light, encouraged me, stepped up to the plate, village has my back, insulin affordability, force of inspiration, gave me the tools to get to action, advocacy for others, empowerment of the people, gave me, with me in spirit, finding your voice, gave back to the community, be a voice, cultural education, taking a stand, and finally, we ain't taking that. Just some of the key words that I heard from you both, Maria, Issa, and Linda. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing each and every day. And Miah, thanks for your leadership. You're an inspiration to so many individuals in our community. So thank you so much. I want to thank everyone for their support of CEP to help the participants build networks and influence legislation that positively affects good for all and creates healing spaces in our community. So thank you so much for your support. I want to share 2 ways that you can also support Wilder's work in the coming months, some things that I think you'd love to learn about. First, between now and Give to the Max Day, which is on November 19th, we're raising money to support the Community Equity Program, CEP. Our goal is to raise $10,000, and we have a $5,000 anonymous gift to match donations dollar for dollar. So please, that's a great opportunity to have your dollar be doubled. Visit www.wilder.org/CEP to contribute. Lastly, in addition to the equity building work of CEP, Wilder Research is doing an in-depth project exploring the equity gap in our state's political landscape. This work is being done through Minnesota Compass, a program within Wilder Research that tracks and analyzes trends and data on the topics that impact Minnesota's quality of life. In January 2021, Minnesota Compass will release Who Leads in Minnesota, which outlines the pathways to leadership positions and examines support for leadership development, all in a data-driven methodology. Who Leads in Minnesota will also include a directory of leadership programs and demographics of nonprofit, business, and government leaders. I invite you to visit www.mncompass.org for updates and other great resources. So again, thanks for joining us today. Hope you found a lot of inspiration. Please follow up with the team if you have any other questions. Have a great day. Take care.